I spoke with David Higgins, the head of the INTERPOL Environmental Crime Program, and I asked him what is behind the big increase in environmental crimes.
Well, the UN Interpol report had been using the previous information that we've been sourcing from our member countries and combining that with the new information we've been getting through the recent engagement or enhanced engagement from member countries to give us a greater accuracy in our estimations. So what we've seen is a significant improvement in the level of engagement from member countries around the world in tackling environmental crimes collectively.
But is the demand for things like ivory and tiger bones increasing? Are you seeing that?
Well, I think the demand has always been there. I mean, that's something that humanity's had to tackle for many, many years, hundreds and hundreds of years, actually. But what we're seeing is the more you look from a law enforcement perspective, the more you actually find. So what we're seeing is because of the greater focus in the law enforcement domain, you're seeing more information, more investigations, more arrests taking place and more seizures as a result, which is a positive thing from a law enforcement point of view. But, you know, at the end of the day, we'd prefer to keep the environment in a more sustainable manner and the wildlife in the wild where they belong.
Now, on the buy side, when it comes to the tiger bones, the shark fins, the ivory tusks, where is the biggest market for this?
Well, the market is heading more towards Asia. I mean, they have a very strong cultural background with the utilization of wildlife for many different beliefs, medicines or religious beliefs. There is also continental type markets within Africa and Latin America and Europe. So you're seeing North America also plays a part. So it is a global trade, but wherever the larger population masses of society are, is where you'll see a demand being called upon.
Well, given the cultural and traditional influences, how can we reduce demand?
Well, you know, there's many different efforts to take place here. You've got education at the children level, you know, starting with our children. You've got public service announcements. You've got governments working bilaterally, trilaterally, and in international organizations like Interpol, educating their community and also their governments to take further action. But from a law enforcement perspective, we really want to start catching those criminals that are responsible through investigation and analysis.
Well, let's focus on the law enforcement perspective. Which government initiatives have been successful?
Well, I think that we've, in the years I've been working in Interpol, we've seen some substantial growth or enhancement in our global enhancement in our law enforcement capabilities and responses, which has led to a lot of seizures. What Interpol is working on now is supporting its member countries in the pursuit of investigations through analysis. Now, this sounds a little bit dry, but it's what we see in our Hollywood-type movies every given day. It's those FBI-type movies where we want to see investigations, we want to see arrests, searches, and we do that through criminal analysis. And that's the method that we're supporting our member countries taking the step forward into the future.
And are you getting a lot of cooperation from the countries, the governments behind this?
I mean, you know, we all have our frustrations, but it's growing every day. It keeps me optimistic. You know, some countries have other threats that they need to address at particular times. There's a lot of insecurity that occurs around our world. I mean, things such as terrorism take a priority. So we've got to understand where we fit into the global law enforcement domain and ensure that we maintain our focus through evidence-based research, which is what this UNEP Interpol report is endeavouring to do. Every year or every 2 years when we issue this report, we enhance our accuracy.
Well, you mentioned the allocation of resources, and the economic reality of many of these African countries makes it challenging to combat this. Things like this are a reality in Tanzania, where the market price for 3,000 elephants killed each year is 5 times higher than the national budget of the country's wildlife protection service. So how can we increase the resources allocated towards this?
Well, I think the governments are increasingly seeing that the elephants themselves are more value through tourism and other means alive in their countries than dead and outside their tax systems. So that's one particular angle. From a on-the-ground law enforcement or environmental security response perspective, this is what the governments are established for. This is why these agencies exist. So their motivation is their requirement to uphold the law. Now, that sounds, again, very philosophical, but at the end of the day, that is what law enforcement is about. We have to remain impartial. We have to do our job with ethics and professionalism. That's what ultimately should be driving us. For those that need further drivers, they get more emotionally attached to the issue at hand, and that motivates them even further. So it's not about what is worth more money and who's getting paid more. It's about doing our job and making sure our national security, our regional and global security is maintained.